Hello and welcome to the DM's Book Club, a weekly podcast where we talk about some Dungeons and Dragons and how we can fit it into our role-playing campaigns. With me, as ever, whenever I'm here, as ever, there is our magnanimous leader, our enigmatic Fiona. Fiona, how are you?
I am doing very well. Erstwhile co-host, I think it's a good thing. No, thank you so much. Yeah, no, it's good to be back. Obviously, we've just done our GM's book club, and we're now diving back into some D&D. But yeah, how have you been? It's quite sunny outside where I am, quite warm.
It's sunny where I am and warm as well. I think it's going to be a high of 23 degrees Celsius or whatever that is in Fahrenheit.
I've no idea what that is.
Whatever that is. Times by 3 plus 10, so about 76. Is that right?
See, you got it straight in your head. I have no idea off the top of my head.
Is that how you do it?
I don't know.
Let's see. 23 Celsius in Fahrenheit. 73.4. I was close.
Whoa,
yeah, it's pretty
impressive.
much times by 3, add 10 is normally the thing you do.
Well, we're currently at a cool 18 degrees just now, but looking at my weather app, it's going to go up to 28 degrees, and then tomorrow it's going to hit a high of 30. We're quite warm where we are just now, and it's been very nice going out, but then I have to go from shade to shade, because otherwise I burn like the tiny pale crisp that I am. So I'm just like,
It's that British skin colour, just that, which is a particular form of pastiness, isn't it? That we can gain.
Yeah, I was going to say, do you tan very well, like when you go on holiday?
I do. But I have
good genes. That's what I'm saying.
Me and my dad's side. I don't know what it is. If it's like my daughter both of us have got quite like naturally tanned skin. So like we've got a slight. So like if I go in the sunshine, I don't really burn. I generally just tan really easily and become like a very nice brown color. Like as in like it just browns. I brown very well. Tan very well. Whilst my other daughter is literally got the full skulls. The full skulls. You know what I mean?
She's the fairy tale princess that will as soon as she goes into the sun, she'll be disappearing like smoke. Oh gosh, yeah,
100%. Yeah, so. I don't know. Maybe it's. I don't know where it comes from, but
no, I am definitely what my mother used to call me a red lobster. If I'm out to like something, I go bit pink, and then what's the word? They always say like, you caught the sun. Yeah, and in my head, I'm like, bird, hell, like that sort of thing. I'm not like,
I've caught the sun. Rach hates it. She goes, you've caught the sun today, but she knows tomorrow, or like the red will go down. It'll just be a nice tan.
You look great, Whereas everyone else is like, like the British holiday maker, like, absolutely.
I don't know if it's because because when I was younger, my dad lived in a sort of warm country, and maybe I went there more. Maybe that was why. So like, I caught it. I don't know.
Were you an outdoors kid? Were you actually out, like touching the grass and all that sort of thing? Yeah. No, me, I was not. So I think that's why. I was
Stay in the shelter of the cold.
Yeah, I was just there in the library, like going, looking outside, going, like, I like to read. The shadows.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Well, speaking of the shade and the shadows and whatnot, what are we talking about today, Hamilton? What is our topic of choice?
We're talking about the not-so-secret book that's going to be coming out this year, clearly, that is the horror subclasses Unearthed Arcana.
Yeah.
We're talking about horror subclass Unearthed Arcana, but there was recently announced that there is another book coming out for 2025.
Yes.
And going off the fact that they suddenly released that not only are we getting Dungeons Master's Guide, Monster Manual, and the Player's Handbook 2024 that we've just been getting, but they had on their list that they last read out, that we're getting the Forgotten Realms Camp Primer and the Dragon Delve, but we're also then saying, by the way, the other Unearthed Arcana you had recently that hinted at it, Eberron's back, and we tapped that as that's a nod for that coming out.
Yeah.
And then they've said, but there's also another one.
A mystery book coming out in October.
Yeah. And then you're like, well, October, Fiona.
Yes.
What happens in October? I can't quite.
It's the highlight of spooky season. I think that's what we're saying.
Yeah, exactly. I must commune with the spirits to figure out what would occur on such a date. And and now they bring out a horror subclasses compendium. It makes me think that, I don't know.
Well, I was going to say, what do you think this book is coming out? Like, what do you dream
Can I?
it's going to be?
I've got two hands here, right?
Yes,
In one
absolutely.
hand, I have Hasbro's ultimate demolition of like the D&D name and culture, and
Uh-huh.
I have in the other hand what one would hope, right? So
Yes,
let's
yes.
go for the like desecration of all that
Yeah.
is good and holy. That it will be Van Richten's Guide to Ravenloft 2025. Like
Really? Oh
as in it will be
no.
that crap. It will be literally like a
Revised.
rebranded
Yeah.
version of basically that book, but with but saying, oh, but it's not, because it's a compendium of all the things we did in Xanathars and all these updated subclasses. So you've now got those, even though you've pretty much got them in this Unearthed Arcana.
Yeah.
And here's the Domains of Dread once again. That's my like.
That's your
the money
worst
grab.
case scenario. Yeah, it's a money
Yeah.
grab. Okay, interesting. Uh-huh.
On the other hand, I think it's actually going to be a campaign, like a campaign Dungeon Master's Guide focused more on creating horror games with a number of small little like things for you to play, adventures to play, but how to build horror fantasy settings. And it's going to be like a DM's guide for 50% of it. And 50% of it's just going to be player subclasses, I think, and like backgrounds, which I know is what Van Richten's is.
I was going to say, that's just, you filed off the serial numbers of Van Richten there, but yes, yeah.
But what I think it's going to be more is a compendium of adventures than, so I think it will have that little, like how you build a horror campaign, minimal, and then I think it's going to be 6 to 10 adventures. That's what I think it will be. Because that's what, and actually, that's not actually what I'd like, but I think that's what it will probably be.
Okay. Do you want to hear my thing of what I'm going to bet money on it?
Okay, go for it.
I think it is going to be yet another re-edition of Curse of Strahd.
Oh, you know what? That is, of course, what they're going to do. Of course, they're going to money grab Strahd. And you know what? Okay, can I add to your bet?
Yeah, please, absolutely.
The writer of She is the Ancient is going to be a part of the team.
I think so. Like,
that's it.
I feel like, because like the Strahd revamps. I know. Sorry, I'm sorry to break your.
I tap out. No, I just bow to your mastery. That's all.
No, but I don't know. This is the thing. I feel like I was looking through the schedule release, and as you said, like we've got Monster Manual Guide came out in February. We've got the the Dragon Delve anthology coming out, which I am actually looking forward to. You know, all the fingers crossed for it. Then we've got the starter set, and then we've got this primer. But now we have suddenly these two other books announced, which I do think is a bit weird to announce them so late.
Yeah, I'm going to one-up you. Return to Ravenloft.
Yeah.
That's what it is, isn't it?
I think that's what it is. Yeah. It's going to be a bit like Phandelver and Below, that sort of thing where it's like, here's the original campaign, and then add then an extra like 100 pages of stuff you could do, which will have stuff like, maybe Beth the Bard, you know, She's the Ancient stuff in, which again, I'm like all for.
You totally think she did a great job. But
you do a great job. I also think that maybe they, James Hake, they did Strahd Must Die Tonight, these sort of one-shot things where it was like, how do you one-shot Strahd, all that sort of thing. Just because it's been like 5 years since we've had Curse of Strahd revamped, whatever, and it wasn't revamped. It was like a couple of problematic lines taken out. So I think they're going to try and revise it and not only upkeep it with the 2024 rules, but also just like, hey, those problematic areas we've actually gone through and had like, I don't know, diversity consultants and all that sort of thing to change through. That's what I think it's going to be honest with you. And I'm like, ooh, yes. The person in me is like, yes, because that's the most popular book that's ever come out for, like in current memory. But I think that's a shame. I would rather have a brand new horror thing. But because we've already had Van Richten's out, I'm like, well, we don't need, like, I really like Van Richten's. But I don't think, why do we need to reissue it? Maybe it's going to be, I was thinking maybe it could be a Domains of Delight kind of thing, perhaps, but it has to be horror. So in my heart of hearts, I think it is going to be like Ravenloft expanded or something like that. I think that's the only thing it could be, especially if like Eberron is now officially confirmed, so that's fake. But I also find like it's so weird to announce them so late. And I don't know why like we didn't hear about it a lot sooner. Like Eberron's coming out in like a couple of months at that time of recording. And I'm like, what's happened? Was there contracts? Was there NDAs? Because we both enjoyed Eberron. And maybe that's why the Artificer wasn't in the player's handbook or all that sort of thing. It's just kind of weird how the schedule has gone about. And I don't really know what's going on. And I think now they're like, oh, we have to get this horror book whatever it is out in time for October. So we need to start.
Oh my gosh. Okay.
Now. Yeah.
I just did a little bit of thing.
Mm.
What about this? If they will go, and I think this would sell. Okay.
Yeah.
Great. Because I think this is what they should do. If you've got time to change it now, Wizards, do it. Right. They actually made a Ravenloft spin-off subsetting in '94, which was set on Gothic Earth, an Edgar Allan Poe influenced alternative Earth of the 1890s, where fantasy creatures and magic exist in the shadows of civilization, called Mask with a Q of the Red Death. And I would buy that. I think Ravenloft Mask of the Red Death and Other Tales. It looks quite good. It's got quite a good cover. There was also a Ravenloft 2, which was called The House on Griffin Hill.
Yeah,
which includes goals for which does not play the same way each time. Includes 11 cards, a bit like you have in the Curse of Strahd module that we have now. So yeah, maybe there's a couple of I don't know. Maybe I would like if it wasn't. I'd hope that it wasn't Curse of Strahd revised. That it was a sequel of some sorts, as in, as much as it's hard to do a sequel based on without spoiling it, like, the sequel is that you do it again, but it would be kind of interesting if there was some sort of something like they take a canonical ending that they want to use, and then some of the, maybe Ravenloft expands into the Forgotten Realms and it starts, or you end up in another Domain of Dread or something like that would be interesting, or it's like a power vacuum. Or something like that.
Yeah. I feel like, again, my suspicions were raised a little bit because there's been another fiction book out recently, that D&D have tried to do these more...
Oh, have there? Is there?
Yeah, and it's called, the one that came out recently by Delilah S. Dawson, came out literally May 13th. It's called Ravenloft, Heir of Strahd.
That's going to... Okay, right. Heir of Strahd.
I would say Delilah also wrote, I remember this, I recognize that name. She also wrote Phasma, which was the Captain Phasma book from Star Wars. And I was like, I remember at the time people going we don't need this. And I was like, I would like it because I quite like Phasma. But yeah, I think
everyone wanted more Phasma. I think it was literally one of those characters where she was very...
Boba Fett, wasn't she? She was she was dead.
Yeah, exactly. That was the Rian Johnson effect of let's not get started.
Let's not get started. That's a different podcast we could talk about.
Sequels.
Yeah. Anyway, I think it's very interesting that suddenly it's all come out now, and it feels... I feel like, again, I've always thought their marketing stuff is weird. We've not really had a D&D Direct recently. Maybe that, maybe they've gone away from these showcases because obviously often people go, oh, that's not what we want, so maybe they're trying to do less of these, what they call, how Xbox and all these video game places used to do showcases and used to get people really excited. D&D used to do it. And I remember you and I were like, oh shit, we need to record now because we've watched the thing. Yeah. And then they've stopped doing them, presumably because they're like, oh, this is too much. And especially, I think we've not said it, I think, on recording, but since we've been talking, and I think the last D&D Direct or Experience or Showcase, whatever, they were announcing Sigil, and that was such a big part of the stuff last year in terms of Showcase for their VTT, and that has now been shuttered after a month of beta testing because it's not, dreadful. Really bad stuff.
I was watching, it came up on my YouTube, and it was when it auto plays, and I started listening to it. It was like an MTGer talking about Hasbro from their point of view, and just how they were going, well, when you look at it from the D&D community, everyone seems to be absolutely hating it. I was like, yeah, it's really going just going into it's quite it's I think what they've I think coming back to this, and particularly after doing GM's Book Club, are just interested in loads more different games to D&D, is that I think that Hasbro has realised finally that, well, they haven't done there was two options that they could have done with D&D, which, I know this is not what we're meant to be talking about, but maybe it is. But it was that they could either go down the route of we need to really revamp D&D, we really do, if we want to stay actually at the forefront of gaming, at tabletop role-playing games, because everyone else has caught up with us. The indie life, ironically, Baldur's Gate 3'd it, and sort of which is, have actually come and done really good stuff by putting really good effort into making games out there. And us, with all this money, have just done flop after flop after flop. I'm pretty brutal on it, but I think in the general, it's been a pretty underwhelming couple of years of games, I think, personally. I don't think there's been some like there's moments of flourish, but you think with the financial backing and the quality and availability of talent that they have at their fingertips, it's not the level that you would expect. And I'm not saying that's the talent's fault. I'm imagining that's a lot of bureaucracy, and D&D has to be D&D and all the stuff. So please don't mean I'm giving those talent any I don't think it's their fault at all. But those people I know have the ability to probably make some seriously incredible stuff. And I feel like when I looked at, like, when we talked about Forgotten Tales in regards to Dragon Heist, for example, of like how great Dragon Heist was and how great that supplement was, and that showed how much extra was left on the table by the team, but they were also allowed to release it. Like, makes me think of what could have been with a lot of these other things. And so they've taken the other route, which is we're just going to be D&D, which is like, well, everyone's going to go here first, and so we're just going to mark it off that. And if this isn't making enough money, then we're not going to bother. We're not going to try making the best VTT because it's not worth it. It's not worth it because people are just going to use what they're using, and it's going to cost us too much to make it really good. Because I still think people would have used it, but
I think they would have, yeah.
Because it's there. D&D Beyond is such a great resource, and the fact that it was all integrated there, it would. And Roll20 is dog turd, and a lot of the other VTTs are pretty clunky still. Owlbear Rodeo is still the best and getting better.
It's simple. It does the job. Yep, I agree. Yeah. It's interesting what you just said there. Just to finish up on that, is that I think D&D has done very well over the last couple of years because of some outside factors. Critical Role, streaming, Stranger Things, and now, as you said, but the Baldur's Gate free effect, to the point where, to link it back down to my theory about Strahd, is that there is now going to be a fan mod of Baldur's Gate, which is putting Strahd together, and it's a whole project, all fan-made, all volunteers. They're calling out for voice actors. They're doing that.
They're using the Baldur's Gate 3 engine, and they're going to make a Curse of Strahd.
Yeah.
But that is what they should be spending their money on, because, gosh damn it, that would sell like...
You would pay for that. Exactly.
You could literally print your own money with that.
Yeah, and that's why I do think, again, it's like it must be Strahd related, whatever it is, in October. But yeah, I think like you said, I think overall it'll be interesting to see what happens in the future of like what is the next big TTRPG. I think we talked about this before. Obviously we are going to go into horror subclasses in a second, but like I thought it could have been Daggerheart, but then I've read a bit of Daggerheart and I'm like, not so sure. Could it be Matt Colville's new RPG, which is not going to come out for at least another year? So they've got time, so maybe that's why they're rushing the release a little bit, trying to get people to actually read the stuff and like, oh, do you remember Eberron? Remember Strahd? That's what I think they're trying to do now, and rush people into it, and again capture that nostalgia, because but I am always the optimist in a sense. I'll be interested to see what this anthology is.
We should probably get a look at these subclasses. There's a few that are new, a few that are returning people, some all with varying levels of change, some good, some bad. But we start off with a new one, which is the Artificer Reanimator.
Yes, we're going back into our Frankenstein roots here. Like it's so interesting because they had a previous UA that came out, which was the Artificer Cartographer, and people were like, we don't need another one. And there's always like, what about Reanimator? And people were like, of course, yes, we'll take that. We'll take 10 of those,
Yeah. Well, it's just like a fleshy version of the I forget the name of it now. The one that has the companion, the
Battlesmith. Yes, absolutely.
Yes, it kind of reminds me of it like that, but with body parts. I think it's classic, very classic D&D, where it's like, well, it's not classic. It's very modern D&D even to be so gruesome yet so lackluster. Do you know what I mean? As in, like, I feel like it just realizes how PG-13 it is. Do you know what I mean? Everything. It quite reminds you of it, which is fine. It's just like, I don't know. I think, again, we talked about this earlier, about like if D&D wants to, I feel like D&D is just becoming the safe route for things, and it's not going to do anything crazy. So I'll be interested. Doesn't make me think, this next horror thing they do is going to be that horrifying.
Yeah.
But we'll see. But yes, so the reanimators defy the laws of nature in pursuit of gruesome experiments. These grim artificers stitch together themselves from disparate corpses, use foul magic to strengthen the living and transform the art of necromancy into a terrifying science. Yeah. So that's the reanimator. You get the spells you'd expect: False Life, Spare the Dying, Witch Bolt, blindness, deafness, enhance ability, animate dead, lightning bolt. Blight. I get it. Death Ward.
Death Ward's very good. I really like Death Ward, yeah.
Anti-life shells, very good. And Raise Dead. I mean, yeah, a classic. A classic. And then you start off with level 3, Jolt to Life. When you cast Spare the Dying, you can modify the spell so it sends a jolt of electricity through the target, reviving it. The target then regains 1 hit point, and each creature in a 10-foot emanation originating from the target, which means a sphere, well, a half sphere, yes.
Oh god, I'd never know. Yeah,
it's a sphere, but if they're like floating in space, it's a sphere. But it's obviously always a half sphere on the floor, I guess. Yeah, orange one target makes a dexterity saving throw against your spell, taking lightning damage equal to 1d floor plus half your artificer level, rounded up. Fine, I mean, max of 14 points to everyone in 10. I mean, it could be a really interesting.
It's a cool thematic thing, isn't it? That's the thing.
It is. But how often are you like, dude, die, so I can use my Spare the Dying ability? It's a good sort of like ads remove, you know, like it's like, okay, I've got my friends down, I don't want someone to coup de grace them, you know, do another attack. They're in melee range, there's a barbarian about to hit them in the face. Let's use my Spare the Dying and it will bolt this person and maybe take some damage off them.
Yeah.
But it's not enough to like kill them. If it did, I'd much prefer it did an emanation of thunder and or force and pushed everyone back.
Agreed.
That would be so much more useful, because then it means that you've sort of saved your friend or ally from this. I mean, you could also just use Spare the Dying, and that makes the whole point of Spare the Dying really, that OP is a Spare the Dying, that it makes it an ability that helps spare them from dying. And you can use it on, it doesn't say anywhere that you can't use it on not an enemy. So you could just, if you've got something that you just want to do that you've killed someone nearby and you just Spare the Dying them for a bit of fun, just so it explodes around all their allies.
Yeah, absolutely.
It could be a fun way of doing things as well. Yeah. So
I would say, that sort of emanation, each creature, so it does include your allies in that as well. Yeah. Does that include yourself, I'm guessing? Like, if you take damage and stuff like that as well?
I'd assume it says each creature in 10 foot, so if you're within 10 feet of it.
Rather than each ally, each enemy, sorry. So like, again, I think it's a very cool, like, thematic thing. And to be fair, like, I don't mind it too much, but I agree, like, it is definitely, like, with levels 3 to maybe 7, you'll be using this like bump up, especially if you don't have a cleric with you, if you don't have healing spells or potions. So I think that's the thing. As soon as you're going to get into those higher levels, it is like I'll put this in the back pocket just in case, I always do wonder if I see artificers like the Reanimator as like someone who's going to get into combat that quickly, because this is Spare the Dying is touch, right? So it's not like you could say like off the, like if you're like pew-pewing from behind like your Warforged or your big creature, I don't know. But maybe I guess with your reanimation, your buddy, I can't remember if you can cast spells from it, like you could do with the other one. Maybe that's what it is, so that you can have this horrible creature come and jolt to life your person on the ground, perhaps. That's what I was wondering.
Yeah, we'll have a look at it. It says in a minute, actually, here, what it can do. Because that's the next thing you get at level 3, is using Tinkerer's Tools or another type of artisanal tools which you have proficiency. You can take a magic action to create a reanimated companion through the power of necromancy and science. The companion manifests in an unoccupied space within 5 feet of you. You determine the companion's appearance. Your choices... Sorry, I'm yawning that. The companion manifests in an unoccupied space with 5 feet of you. You determine the companion's appearance. Your choices don't affect its stats. It's friendly, it obeys you. It lasts till you finish a long rest, or you take a magic action to dismiss it. It collapses into a pile of viscera. Immediately drops 0 hit points and dies if you die, triggering its death burst, which we'll come on to.
Death burst.
You can only do 1 before a long rest, or expend a spell slot to create one, which I think is good, because if it does die, is incapacitated, then you can make another one, which I think is always useful. I think by using up some of your spell slots makes sense. It can move and takes your action on its own, but the only action it takes is a dodge action unless you take a bonus action to command it to take an action, if it has the incapacity, whatever. It doesn't say there's a melee attack. doesn't say it can cast. You can cast
So
it.
no, it's improved level in level 5. That's what I'm looking at here. But it's interesting. So yeah, it becomes like Arcane Conduit. So you can cast spells as though you're in the companion's space, but you must use your own senses. Once per turn, when you cast an Artificer spell from the Evocation or Necromancy schools, Spare the Dying is Necromancy, I just checked, and deal damage whilst your companion is within 120 feet of you, you can add your Intelligence modifier to 1 damage roll of that spell. I mean, that's a nice way to do it. But yeah, I can imagine then you'd be like, well, I'm not going anywhere into that. I will send my my crawling claws of like various body parts to go and spare the dying on various people, which could be quite cool. But then I guess it takes damage to itself and all that sort of thing as well from that thing. So yeah, okay, fair enough. It's just, yeah, like I said, I don't necessarily foresee the Artificer as a support class being in the melee of things and casting. Always spellcasters are casting from afar in my books.
Yeah, I know. I bet you're just making this thing and using it as a time bomb along with your Spare the Dying is what it's kind of implying. And because Spare the Dying is a cantrip, you can just keep popping that off whenever you want. It feels like you could just have your Reanimator companion hit something, kill it, Spare the Dying, boom, hit it, Spare the Dying, boom, and then when it blows up, boom, and then it's kind of like and you just keep doing that, and it's kind of a bit. I think the things they've added here are interesting, but it really makes for a very weird combat mechanic. Yes. Do you know what I mean? Where it's like my main focus here is creating things to blow up or letting things die to blow up, which is a bit weird. I don't know. Personally, I think is a bit strange. And I think it would be a better solution if they made the Reanimator companion maybe you're allowed to have multiple of them. They have less damage. They have less HP. And they are things that explode and you chuck a load of them. And you can have up to 4 or 5 and you increase that number. So you're like horde mode, throwing things at things. But it's a bit... Again, it's a bit of a weird. It's a bit of a weird take, personally. I think. So I'm not 100% like convinced by it so far. But keep going. Let's keep going.
I definitely think having more of them would be interesting. But because then you're in that realm of like raise undead, like the actual necromancer stuff. I know people were in the comments of the video like, oh, just give us the necromancer, and I was just there going like, well, it kind of does that. I guess it's just like perfecting one thing. And that's what happens in level 9 is that you improve your reanimation. You can give it like almost like a tag, so to speak. You've got bloated, gaunt, and moist.
Right.
Bloated just means it's sort of bigger. And when it takes a hit, or when it hits a large or smaller creature with its dreadful swipe, it's pushed 10 feet away. So again, that sort of like big homunculus, like blah, sort of throwing things away. Gaunt means that it increases its speed up to 45 feet, so it's fucking quick, this thing, and it gets a climb speed. And whenever a creature of your choice starts its turn within 10 foot, like a radius of this particular companion, that creature must succeed on a wisdom saving throw against your spell save DC or have the frightened condition. Because, it is just a horrific, horrible, maybe it's got lots of legs, that's why it's so quick, this horrible sort of like thing that's all angles compared to like the bloated thing, which you probably be like, oh shit, run away from it. And then finally, yes, moist, it gains a swim speed, which again sounds horrific, to be honest with you. And then, whenever it attacks, from 10 creatures will get like a acid damage as equal to your intelligence modifier. So again, you want to play around a little bit with like, maybe acid damage, and it reduces your armor a little bit, etc. That could be something that's quite something to do with that as well. So I do like the 3 options of it. I think I could see people homebrewing other options, perhaps. Maybe to give your reanimation a fly speed, for example, or something later on, perhaps.
I get it. I just don't think any of them are that... I just don't think it's that great. I think it's like it feels like early days Beastmaster to me. At least it's got bonus action for this stuff, but I'm not...
I do think the reanimation, the idea that it could explode and die, I think that is a cool thing to add to it compared to like the Battlesmith's creature, which it's just like it gets slightly better, but it doesn't have like an all-ending attack. Which I think that's what I would do. I would homebrew having the Battlesmith's creature having something that would be like, okay, it loses 0 hit points, it explodes as well because it is just like it's an unstable automaton. I think that I find I would probably add that to it because I think that's a really good addition.
Well, this is the thing. I just think that when you've got something like this, if you look at the Armourer, for example, which is slightly different, so let's not take the Battlesmith, but let's go with that. You get a supercharged armor, which gives you so much more flexibility in combat to do loads of different things, which I know it is focused on combat, but I think in that you can have if you take the Guardian, you get both Thunder Gauntlets, which deals 1d8 thunder damage on any hit, on top of being a simple melee damage. We don't have to creature hit by the gauntlet has disadvantage on attack rolls against targets other than you until the start of your next turn. So that's like doing so much. On top of the fact, as a bonus action, you gain temporary hit points equal to your level in this class. So just at level 3, you're already... This thing's giving you a 12 at level 2. So level 3, you're getting half your... Is it half your... 4 times your level. So 4 threes are 12.
Yeah, well done.
Plus 4, 16.
Got there. Yeah.
You're getting 16 hit points extra, which is fine, kind of good. But with the Guardian one, you're already getting your 3 hit points temporary on top of yourself, which is fine. But you're dealing an additional 1d8 damage each round. And then the lightning launcher as well gives you, a long range of 300 feet, does 1d6 level, and then once each of your turn, when you hit a creature, you can deal an extra 1d6 damage to that target. So you can when you hit a creature, you can add an addition. So you're doing, I don't know, it feels so much more like you're getting more for your money, I think, than having this additional creature, which feels a little bit like it doesn't feel like it's doing enough variation for me.
I think it's different styles for the Artificer itself, because I think it is, in my head, it's what the Bard is, just with like a creature added in or a few extra pieces. Like, again, we haven't looked at the Cartographer, but from what I understand of that, it feels a little bit more social or a little bit more exploratory, because obviously, maps and whatnot. And that, I think, so it's horses for courses. I agree. I think the Armourer and the Battlesmith are probably... Oh, and then you got the
Artillerist as well.
Is it Artillerist? I was going to say Gunslinger there off the top of my head.
Yeah.
So those are sort of more... I feel those are more like, they are going to go into battle at various levels, like tank or at least go and attack. Certainly with the Armourer, you can move yourself, depending on the armor, into the forefront. But yeah, Reanimator, it's a cool vibe. And a lot of these subclasses, they are cool vibes. But for me, I see this as a support class that will be like, oh, I'm going to heal you. Okay, big bomb coming in, so... Yeah.
But it's only doing 1d4 plus 2 plus your intelligence modifier, necrotic damage, for its main action. And the target can't take opportunity attacks. I guess it's similar. I guess I'm forgetting how dull some of these can be. It just doesn't feel like... It just feels like it's lacking a bit of... I don't know.
I think I would add, maybe with that improved Reanimator, that you could have like extra limbs and it takes an extra attack. Stuff like that. I think I like the idea of it. Yeah, the swim speed. There's like I think you said it with Beastmaster, or is it Wild Shape? I can't remember that. At certain levels, you unlock another thing. So maybe later on, you unlock. It does have more limbs, so therefore it can take an extra attack. Oh, it now has wings. It has a fly speed. And again, every time you make it, because again, it's all, for me, I see it as like it's a work improvement. It's exploded. Well, don't worry, I've picked up the body parts and now it's got wings on it. It will be fine this time. The final bit, it says like Promethean Reanimator. So again, really Frankenstein vibes from the name there. The main thing, apart from obviously improves the death burst, is the life transfer. And I will say all these D&D subclasses here, with these particular horror ones, anything at the final level is always to do with death. That's the sort of main vibe I'm getting. So it says here, when you take damage, you can take a reaction to cause your reanimated companion to drop to 0 hit points. It immediately dies, triggering the death burst traits, and you regain a number of hit points equal to your Artificer level. So it's kind of like a bit of a Hail Mary in that sense. It's like, I'm very close to death. I'm sorry, mittens. You click your fingers and it just goes, blah, explodes. It's
but I don't understand, does that mean you still take the damage?
You will still take it. Will absorb it.
Yeah, you still take. So if you got hit with the 66 damage, you still take 66 damage, but then you can blow up your course to gain hit points equal to your Artificer level. Which
so at this point, at least 15.
15.
Yeah, I mean, it absorbs some of it. If you're like, oh, that's gonna... I guess it's when you take damage, it's as a reaction, right? So I think it's just to stop you from dying outright, perhaps, or dying and dropping to 0 yourself.
But if you think, if it's 15, level 15, that reanimated corpse has 64 hit points.
Yeah.
And what I'm gaining in respect of killing that thing is 15 to me. When I'm at level 15, I'm going to be fighting dragons who are going to deal 6d10 damage at me, averaging 34 or whatever. 34 damage to me. That doesn't seem like good enough to me. I think it should be, when you take damage, you can choose to ignore the damage and send it to your animated corpse.
Yeah.
If it drops to 0 hit points, it blows up. That's what I would suggest. Like, as in, like,
yeah, I understand what you're talking about. Yeah, it feels like that symbiotic relationship that sometimes that sort of there's a spell which is like that sort of bonding thing where you know, yeah, I get that.
Like paladins have that, don't they? They can take half the damage. They can share the damage from you.
Maybe that's what it would be. Maybe you would change it to be they take half your damage. They take half that incoming damage, and if they drop to 0 hit points, then they explode.
They die. Yeah, so they don't always have to go to 0 hit points. I think they take half, or they take full of all of it, and they have to go to 0 hit points no matter where they are. But I think half would be a good way of doing it, because I think it's got 64, and you're gaining 15 when you're going to be fighting things that are going to be dealing 64.
I see that. I think in my head, the idea behind it is that this whole thing is such like a hodgepodge, like a patchwork thing, so not all things are going to work. But I agree, when you're at that level, you know, especially if you're calling it the Promethean reanimation, you're probably getting better at it, aren't you?
Exactly.
You're probably doing all. You probably
5 from the gods, right? You should be getting.
You probably worked out.
Or you can drain, or just say you can drain the hit points remaining from your thing. It has to be all of them. It drops to 0 hit points, and you gain whatever HP it has left. So it means that it's like, I'm killing it to give myself the power. That feels very
that's quite good.
And it's like, if it could have 64, and that's great, amazing for me. And they should just make it that, because why the heck not, right?
Yeah,
like, just do it.
Because you take a magic action to do it. Yeah, so you won't be able to really do it in combat. It says I'm having a look.
No, it doesn't. It just says when you take damage, you can take a reaction. It's a reaction.
Oh no! I'm talking about, like, say in the next turn you've taken that your creature's dead, and you're like, right. Yeah. It says take a magic action to create an animated companion.
You have to cast a spell, which would mean you have to use your action the next turn to do it. Which is fair.
I mean, it was fun. I can imagine you get all that visceral. You're like, okay, this time it is moist. You know, it's that sort of, and you just have this flavoursome describing of it, like just looking even shitter and even worse. And it's just like, coming part of the themes. Like, it's gonna work. Best of luck. You know, so that could be quite cool.
The only thing I think was a bit of a shame was that they should have, like, if they had the time, this is what annoys me about it, is that they could be like, all right, like, you can take, depending on your level, and I missed this from the old sort of like, I'd taken a bit out of polymorph and stuff like that, is that you can say at a certain level, if you fight a creature of a certain type, right, you can reanimate that corpse and gain its benefit as your reanimated corpse. Feels like a so much cooler thing. So it's like, you kill a dragon, I've got myself my own dead dragon now, and it still has the HP that you have, but it can gain, or it says up to a challenge rating of X, because I know they've kind of got rid of challenge ratings, but like, well, they do have challenge rating here.
They still have it,
yeah. So give it a challenge rating level that you can reanimate, and I think that would be fun.
I like that idea that the bits of bodies that you put together, like, it does have dark vision, but it has blind, blind sense, all that sort of thing. Sorry, I was just going to correct myself. So once you create a companion, you can't do so again until you finish a long rest or expend a spell slot to create one. So I'm just saying that you can't just like, magic action, boom, boom, boom. You can't just suddenly every turn
spells.
They have to have a spell thing. I like that. I like the idea of in the battle, you're not having to wait to the end of battle to recreate your creature. You just like
that could be a spell slot to gain certain amount of hit points, isn't it? It's a good, like, you'd always have it up as a backup, you know. I think it's good.
For sure. Yeah, I think ultimately, as with all these horror subclasses, it is vibes heavy. And I think I agree with what you're saying about, like, it just needs a few bits of tweaks and stuff like that. I think we need more, like, unlocking stuff of, like, you've now learnt to add several limbs to it, or even add this. Because I think the moist stuff and the what's the other? There was moist, gaunt, and bloated. I could see like a couple more of those options coming later on, or at least being homebrewed in some way. And to get past that PG-13 rating you were sort of talking about, thinking back to what this book could be, that's why I'm sort of thinking like maybe it is Strahd related, because obviously there'll be bodies everywhere, or ways to, or even maybe one of the other planes of existence in Domains of Dread. Sorry, there was that. I can't remember what the name of it was, but it definitely was like a Frankenstein of like a female version of Frankenstein putting together bits of bodies, and it was just a pretty grim place. So maybe they're going to expand on that. Who knows?
Oh, that's cool. I mean, it sounds interesting. That's great. I love it.
That sounds great.
So next up was was the College of Spirits, which I have played of all of them. It's a reboot of it. It does give us a little design note, which
thank God.
which is always useful. And I do have the old one open, but it's basically changed the initial element of where you had guiding whispers and spiritual focus and stuck them together under channeler, which means guidance, cantrip, which I used all the freaking time when I was a spirit college spirit. I was just like guidance. And spiritual focus, you employ the tools of proficiency with a gaming set, and you use the cards or the finite spell casting focus instead of
very theme heavy. Like, I mean, College of Spirits is mediums, right? It is that spiritualism sort of vibe coming into this.
They've sort of just changed the working. Got rid of skull, spirit board, crystal skulls, crystal balls, and Taroka decks, because I think which is fair, and sort of like made it more, your own thing, and sticking with the gaming thing as a particular thing. Spirits from the Beyond as a change from Tales from Beyond, which I think is worse. That's the only
Yeah. So I was going to say, so Tales from Beyond was it more thematic, and they've changed everything about it. Essentially. So Tales from Beyond was like you were telling a tale almost, and it was like, beware this sort of thing, and you do it on the battlefield. Like, it's still the same sort of thing, and then you'd roll for it, and you pick one of them, and usually it would be a negative effect for a target person. But now they've sort of switched it to Spirits from Beyond, so it's almost like you're channeling a spirit. And again, same thing, you'd roll the whatever D12 or whatever to grab your tail, and it's just thematically, I'm just a bit like, because I kind of like the idea that you were telling a tale, beware these spirits, rather than like, the beloved spirit has come out, and I don't know why they would have changed it. I don't necessarily know. As someone who's played it, did you use a lot of this? Like,
well, I was very early days, so I used two, and they were quite cool. So I gave the clever animal one out, which was the next 10 minutes, someone with a target-based intelligent wisdom or charisma check, the target can roll an extra die immediately after rolling the d20 and add the extra dice number to the check. It kind of worked really well because I was meant to be like an employee of we were all kobolds who were an employee of a richer person who was one of the main characters in the game. So we were just doing a side bit where we were like their employees. So I was just giving them all of my good stuff. So I said, this will, I rolled, we didn't roll. I just went, I'm going to choose the ones that I could hit on my die.
You picked, okay.
Yeah, I did pick. So I think you start with I had a D6 at the time, wherever I was at I could think it was like level 5 or something like that.
Yes.
And then, so I then just said, they get the clever animal for this bit because we're going into a battle. So that would be useful. I was just doing things that were helpful to them. So I didn't use any others, actually. That was the only one I think I used,
Yeah, I'd forgotten, because it's, the size of your bardic inspiration die. Yeah, there's 12 entries, certainly on the old College of the Spirit.
Yeah.
And as you increase, you get better stories as you go, which I think that's quite cool, quite like that.
I think picking is perfectly acceptable if you want to, because I think it feels a bit weird. But it feels more sense with the Spirits one. With the Tales one, it was a bit like, well, I'm telling the tale. I'm not just going to... Why would I choose a random tale? Do you know what I mean?
You know what this calls for? The Tale of the Avenger. And you're like, what? No, we're just having a nice ball. What are you talking about?
Yeah. I would just say that you can use these up to the certain level, but I think rolling for I think the Spirits one, it makes it a bit more like, well, I will conjure the spirits, but it's weird that spirits don't give you. So I would sort of say, I don't know. I think it's a little bit contrived, which is fine. And I think if they were more. Yeah, I don't know. I think it would be like you can roll for it, or would be nice if it was like you can either roll for it and then you gain. If you either roll for it and you don't use up a bardic inspiration, or you can give up the bardic inspiration die to choose the one within your level. Would be like a nice balance for it, or something of that ilk. I don't know. Or you give up 2 die to be able to choose. Do you know what I mean?
That makes sense to me. Yeah, because some of these obviously are good benefits, some of them are bad, and if you roll them randomly, then they get. Well, I guess they're going to get. If it's on the Spirits from Beyond, beloved. Okay, target regains hit points equal to 1 roll from your bardic inspiration die plus your charisma, and you're like, fuck! I've just given the dragon a bit of a kiss on the cheek, and it's now better. Damn it! Yeah, I assume you would choose. I assume most people will choose.
No, it says, so while holding the spell, you take a bonus action to expend 1 use of your inspiration and call forth power spirit. Roll the die, refer to the Spirits table, and to determine spirit channel, then choose who your target is. So you can choose, so you don't have to be like, evil person, here's 3 hit points. You get to see what spirit comes to you, and then you get to choose what happens. It just would be a bit annoying when it's like, I need hit points, great. I'm gonna force damage to the enemy. Just feels a bit It
You
just
go, oh
feels a
wait,
little bit.
1 second. Yep, sorry.
Yeah.
This, I've got a tell just for
I
this.
haven't quite communed yet well with the spirits. It
Yep,
feels.
I'll get the ending. Hang on. Yeah,
Yeah. I don't know. It's fun, but it's a little. It would be. I find it the
yeah.
sort of thing where you'd find it's getting in your way more than it's actually making it
I think
fun.
the issue is ultimately it should. I think all the table stuff, all the stories should be either positive or negative, right? And then you flip a coin, or you decide like, oh, I want to tell a good story that will help me buff myself and my allies, rather than like debuff my enemies. That's the thing.
Yeah.
And I think combining the two, again, I said there's not many like positive ones story wise, but it's just like that risk of like, oh shit, god damn it, you know. So that's the only thing I'd say. I wonder if you need two tables, or if you need to just make it like, look, just make it negative, like they're debuffs.
You could choose, or you just choose like once you've got level. When you're at this level, you can go up to this number. When you're at this level, you go to that number, and I think that's fine. And if you roll, you get a free go or something like that. I don't know.
The thing is, though, if you do let them choose, I'm just jumping ahead a little bit. Level 14 is that whenever you roll on the spirits beyond table, you roll the dice twice and choose which of the two effects to bestow. So then I think you need to rechange what that level 14 is.
If you do. I think it's just annoying. And I think when you're making things annoying for people, I don't think that's I don't think that's a handy thing to do, particularly when bards are quite, bards can cast wish, right? So, like, why are they bumbling about with
which story should I tell, guys?
Yeah, exactly. Do you know what I mean? It feels a bit of a shame and I do miss some really kind of fun things like Tale of the Mindbender was one of my favorite ones from before, which was that you evoke an incomprehensible fable from an otherworldly being. The target must have seen an intelligence saving throw or take psychic damage equal to 3 rolls of your bardic inspiration die and be stunned to its next turn. I like this idea that you just kind of go, and this the brain just goes,
very David Lynch. Yeah, it's actually in reverse.
I really love that. I kind of think that was there were some quite funny ones. Funny, but there's quite fun ones, and I think they kind of. That one's gone. And then you do have, like, 12 is then you can also choose the spirit effect by choosing one of the other rows in this table. So it's like, for goodness sake, if I roll 12, you've also given up. So you've, like, made it pointless. But at level 14, don't worry, I get advantage. It just seems a bit like, I don't know. Yeah. I'm not a fan.
I wonder, because you choose between the two. I wonder if you just would, if you're still rolling, you get to do 2 and they combine. That's what I would think. Because you're just like, I can weave so many stories together.
You can cast 2 spirits.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I would assume. I don't know. It's tricky, but then it's whenever you roll, right? So yeah. And
then like level 6 empower channeling. Level 6. I don't know. Is this good enough? Getting whenever you cast a bard spell that deals damage or restores hit points, roll a d6. You gain the bonus to one of this spell's damage or restores hit points, which is sort of okay.
It's a little bit of buff.
It's a nice buff for like. Healing generally, because you could do healing in a circle, whatever it's called, can't you? Healing respite or whatever it is, or what when you're in short rest.
Healing spirit, I think you're thinking of.
Oh
right?
yeah, something like that. And then there's a mass healing word or whatever it is, or something, a mass. But I haven't played in such a long time.
I know.
Yeah, that is that would be useful because you're adding d6 to everyone, I imagine. So that's kind of cool. And then spiritual manifestation. You always have spiritual guardian spell prepared. You can cast a spell once without using a spell slot, and you gain the ability to cast it this way when you finish a long rest. Whenever you start a cast spell, you can modify it so spirits also guard against worldly threats. When cast this way, you can allies in the spell emanation have half cover. Once you modify the spell this way, you can't do so again. So I think that's pretty cool.
I like it.
Spirit guardians are kind of fun. Normally quite a sort of thematic-y thing again. Like they don't do 100% of the amazing things. They kind of carry things around, can't they, and stuff like that.
Yeah, I'm just reading it here. So when you cast a spell, you designate creatures that are unaffected by it. So obviously you and everyone else. Any other creature's speed is halved when they're in the space, and whenever it enters a space, they must take a wisdom saving throw. On a failed save, they take 3d8 radiant damage if they're good or neutral, or 3d8 necrotic damage if you are evil, if the caster is evil, sorry. On a successful save, they take half as much, and they may only make this once per turn. So yeah, the fact that you can add then like half cover to yourself as well for your party, that's pretty cool. I quite like that.
Yeah, I think that is useful, and that's a good. Sorry, I was getting Spirit Guardians mixed up with Invisible Servant or whatever it's called.
There's spiritual weapon, spiritual guardians, and unseen servant. There's a couple of like
Servant,
servants.
that's it. Yeah, so that's what I was getting mixed up with. So actually, this makes it a lot better. I thought it was unseen. It was like an unseen servant that now also gives you cover, but actually, no, it doesn't.
Stop,
really good
my
stuff.
lord! Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, exactly. No, that's cool.
I like the thematicness of the College of Spirits.
And if you're looking to get into D&D writing, Bard subclasses are some of the shortest ones to get into, so a useful one.
Cleric time. It is time for the Grave Domain. So the Grave Domain concerns itself with the boundary of life and death. Those who tap into this domain's power, death is a foundational, natural, and inevitable part of the universe. As such, clerics seek to destroy undead and strive to shepherd spirits to the afterlife, whether those spirits want to go or not. I think this is a really interesting take on it, because before it definitely felt like Grave Domain was very solemn, serene, perhaps, but now you can really choose whether you want to bring. It's that sort of like between the line of like, oh, we'll bring these spirits back briefly and then do something with them or put them across. So I thought it was really interesting what they did with the Grave Domain here.
Yeah, I think this is the best one so far, and I think it's made it better in the places that it has. The only thing that I was a little bit annoyed was they changed the spells and got rid of false life, which I thought is a really cool one.
Yeah,
and anti-life,
Shell,
which I think are both great spells, which I was really sad that they got rid of, because I'm like, those are freaking great spells, and made sense to me for Grave Domain, but they swapped them out basically for Hold Monster. And I think it was Detect Evil and Good / Raven Feeble. Detect Evil and Good, I think it was, pretty much, which they swapped those around for. And I don't know. I think Vampire, I think they're good, but I just didn't think it was necessary. That was all.
they said they've updated the spell list to be more versatile and combat relevant spells.
Yeah.
Which I think is fair, because like again, if like Hold Monster is always a good one to be like, oh, no, thank you.
Yeah, but I totally agree. It's a great spell. I just think thematically, I thought Anti-Life Shell, which is also a great spell and fits very well with it, didn't feel a bit out.
Agreed.
So that was all. But
for sure.
I mean, Ravenfield was great. Vampiric Touch is good. Blight's fun, I guess. Raised Dead makes sense. But yeah, you get Circle of Mortality. You can Pull of Death. You could say when you manipulate the balance between life and death, granting the following balance: Pull of Death once per turn when you cast a spell or hit with an attack roll and deal damage to a bloody creature. It means they've got under half their hit points. It takes an extra 1d4 damage.
Nice.
It's a nice little thematic thing. But I do love Return to Life, which is that when you would normally roll one or more dice to restore hit points to a creature at 0 hit points with a spell or channel divinity, don't roll. You just use the highest number possible, which I think is
nice.
Very good.
That's
like that.
So cool. Again, thematic and also level 3 as well. So you could be like, again, it's that sort of like a big Hail Mary in the sense of using your child's divinity for it. But like, a spell like, a Healing Word or not Lay on Hands, sorry. Or just any sort of heal spell. Boom. You don't need to
time you want it. With those at 0 hit points, there's nothing worse than like, well, I'm giving you 2, because then it's just such a waste of it feels like such a waste. But if you can be like, because there's a lot of other abilities people gain that are particular to bringing people back to life at a good number of hit points. That's something that we've seen in other classes and subclasses before. And there are spells of that ilk as well. But like abilities, it feels like a really good one to have. And I think that's fair. You don't get it you only get it with spells or childhood. You don't get it on using healing potions or something like that.
Yeah, 100%.
We talked about the spells, but do you want to talk about Path to the Grave?
Yeah, I'll get on that. So as a bonus action, you present your holy symbol and expand a use of your child divinity to curse one creature you can see within 30 feet of yourself until the start of your next turn. Whilst cursed, this creature has disadvantage on attack rolls and saving throws. Pretty good at level 3, right. I'll say that. When you or an ally hits the cursed target with an attack roll, you can end the curse early, no action required, to make the attack deal an extra necrotic or radiant damage of your choice equal to 1d8 plus your current level. Now, I really like that. I like the idea that you go, not this turn, but it's no action required. I think that's just really cool. And then, if next turn you're like, okay, another bonus action, I can... I guess it depends on how many child divinities you have, I guess.
But I would just leave it going. I would probably only use that when it's like, they look like they're close to death. Let's go for that 1d8 push and 100%. End the curse. But having like someone, which doesn't say how you can remove that curse, doesn't say like there's any other way to remove that curse, that you've got any big bad that you're against and you've instantly dealt disadvantage on attack rolls and saving throws, that's a massive thing. And even if you do attack them, I would not end the curse because that's such a big deal.
Yeah, that's a big deal. I would never end it unless it like literally I was like, oh God, I need to use it for something else. Need to use my childhood ability for something else, perhaps.
Exactly. Yeah.
But yeah, I love that one.
100%. Or it's like, if I do it, does it look like, how bad does it look? It looks pretty bad. 1d8 bad? Yeah, maybe. Okay, run through 1d8. See what happens.
Sentinel at death's door. So when you or a blooded creature you can see within 30 feet of yourself is hit with an attack roll, you can take a reaction to halve that attack's damage. You can use this feature a number of times equal to your wisdom modifier. You regain all these on a long rest. That's pretty cool. I like that idea. Again, that sort of idea that, again, they're playing into that sort of mechanic of like your half health. Okay, I'm giving you my reaction. Let's halve that damage deal. Because again, it's just like you're sort of resisting like that pain. You're like just sort of like tightening up and like trying to keep going through this idea of like faith, And I just I really see that. I think it can be very evocative in your imagery as you're describing it as well. I would like that as level 6 as well. It's pretty good, pretty early on.
I was confused as to why you can be fine and they have to be a bloodied creature, and I imagine that means like even your allies. I'm assuming it just sounds like weird wording.
Because I presume you could do it whenever you want, right?
Yeah,
whereas
I guess so.
your allies, they can't be like, oh, full health, and then they get taken out by a huge fireball. Like, oh, well, technically you weren't under. Otherwise, you would just use it all the time, right?
Yeah, I guess so. I just thought it was a bit. I also thought the weird wording of bloodied creature seemed weird. Like, is that allies or is that only Does that mean like any?
I think anyone on the battlefield.
I've used the term creature to mean anyone on the battlefield, but it is a weird term.
That's why I was asking before about the Artificer. It's like, for me, it's like enemies, allies. That's when you can really but I guess creature refers to anyone, right? That's what
it does, right? That's the thing.
That's what I assume. Yeah.
And then Divine Reaper at 17, which is this is not a lot on this one either, to be honest, is you deep connection to this domain renders you a hallowed harbinger of death, granting you the following benefits: enhanced necromancy. When you cast a spell of level 5 or lower from Necromancy School that targets one creature or a spell from the Grave Domain spell stable, you can expend a use of Channel Divinity to target a second creature within the spell's range, which is pretty cool.
Nice.
Spell requires costly or consumed material components. You must provide material components for each target, which is fine.
Yeah, makes sense.
And the Keeper of Souls is always fun, because I've got a similar thing in my game actually like this, which is when enemy dies in 6 feet, you or one creature can see 6 feet yourself, regains hit points equal to 3 times your cleric level. You can't use this feature if you have the incapacitated condition. Once you use the feature, you can't use it again until you finish a short or long rest.
So what's that? That's 3 times 17. She says, trying to work that out. That's like
51.
51. Straight. That's great. That's pretty good. Yeah. I like that. Straight away, you get 51 as long as you remember to use it.
Yes, that's pretty good. No, I think that is really good. When you think that that's giving you 51, and the one we had on the Animator was getting you 15, feels a bit. Like that's where it
again, like I said, I feel like the animators, because like I put all these body parts together, so some of them aren't as fresh as they could be. But yes, it does feel a bit like, well, of course I'm going to be a cleric over a mad professor for 100%. Yeah.
Rangers, they have a go with Hollow Warden. This is a new one, and I think I actually think for all the stuff, it's okay. Draw on the mind of ancient wild terrors. Legends tell the most ancient and fearsome terrors lurk deep within the odd places of the world. I'm going to go with that, even it says old. Unfathomable and bloodthirsty entities of fallow soil and sharpened claws. Hollow wardens venerate and draw power from such beings, transforming themselves into similarly merciless and monstrous guardians that stalk along jagged coastlines, across steep mountain crags, and through other dark and wild places. Yeah, they're very cool. It's like trying to make you be a little bit more like werewolfy, Yeah, you get a couple of weird spells. You get a really cool variation thing, and I think it's quite good. What's your initial thoughts on it?
Yeah, no, I love this idea of again. I think in the video, Mackenzie, who's been the sort of lead on this, was saying that they were really inspired by, you think of like Appalachian folklore, anything to do with the forest. It's like, oh, the forest is old, you don't fuck with it, and that's the idea of stags. And like obviously later on it talks about like changing your appearance and all that sort of thing. I like the line jagged coastlines. I like the idea that actually, again, we think of Warden's Ranger's story as being like forest people, because obviously that's what we've seen in media stuff. But I like the idea of maybe it's along the sea and rivers, and you can have these horrific things along the beaches and stuff like that. I think that could be quite cool and interesting.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think thematically, I'm like, oh, this makes total sense. And like you eventually just change yourself into one of these horrific guardians of nature, right? And you don't fuck with nature. And I think that's a really big thing in horror folklore. It's like, yeah, oh fuck, this is something that we don't understand, but it is nature rather than like a supernatural or eldritch being. So yeah, I was quite keen on this. And from what I saw in the comments, people were like, oh, this actually makes sense from how, because they've obviously redesigned the Ranger to be around the Hunter's Mark spell. Apparently this sort of subclass does really add to that as well, from what I saw. So I was like, that's really interesting. Again, because like there's always been this worry about if you make your class one thing, and if the player doesn't know what that thing is, or if you don't use it as much, then yeah, you might not get as much enjoyment out of it. But I think here you definitely do.
I think it does some things that are really, really good. So I've got weirdly, again, I keep going back to it, but I've got a similar cast which called Wildkin in mind, where they sort of a bit more like, which reminds me, which I was sort of playing on the original versions of tieflings in the old versions of like D&D, where they had like, you can build your own tiefling, and it was like, you could be like, oh, I've got cloven hooves, so you gain a little bit of advantage to agility, and you can take, I'm going to be winged, so I'm going to get some sort of flight ability. I know this is the thing that kind of goes on in D&D, is these things are kept very simple, and they're simplifying. But the only thing that I was like, oh, this could get so much more juicy, was if it did, it gives you a few options. So we're going to come to it. So you get these spells, which are like Wrathful Smite, which is a great spell, Spike Growth, Fantasy, but you get this Wrath of the Wild. So you draw on strange and ancient horrors of the land. And when you cast Hunter Mark, you transform, gaining the following benefits. It gives you 2. I would love to see 8. Do you know what I mean? That's what honestly, you're D&D, you're Wizard of the Coast, you've got all this freaking money now. 8, please, or at least 6, because I think it feels like this is where it could become really juicy, because that's why I've made 12 in mine. So there you go, right? So it's like, here's 12 different things you could do, because like Ancient Armor, you gain bonus to your AC equal to your Wisdom modifier, minimum of 1, plus 1 that is. Your body is wreathed in rotten bark or bristly bristles. Now, again, Wizards, put your body is wreathed in rotten bark or bristly bristles at the front, and then tell me the information, because it's so much cooler.
No one's going to care about it. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
okay, it's the mechanic. Yeah, absolutely.
Exactly. And it's the way everyone does those things. Like, you even do it yourselves. You draw on the strange and ancient horrors of the land, and then you tell us what you do. You don't go, because it sounds really cool. And then Unnerving Aura, which I'm going to say, I'm going to do it the right way they should. Your shadow lengthens and twists around you, or you sprout unnatural growths like bloody antlers or putrid fangs. When an enemy starts its turn within 10-foot emanation originating from you, it makes a wisdom saving throw against your spell CV. On a fail save, it can either take an action or a bonus action, and not both.
Right.
Good. I think frightened condition would be kind of cool, but
I think at level 3 though, I think that's pretty not too bad, you know. But I agree. Yeah, you would maybe, and when you're saying like having those extra bits and pieces, yeah, I can imagine that. Again, probably talks about it being upgrading, but just going on to that the bloody antlers thing. Something I didn't realize until maybe recently is that when deer and stags, they're growing their antlers are actually covered in almost like a velvet kind of fur, and they shed as they grow to like renew or stuff like that. So often you see these deer around with just bloody antlers and like bits falling off them. It looks absolutely terrifying. So I love that idea that you're growing these horrific like horns and stuff like that, and it looks pretty no wonder it's scary, you know, that unnerving stuff. On top of that, I'd say that I saw an image recently. I want to say it wasn't a gazelle, but it was like a deer-like creature that had like 2 horns, but they had clearly gone through. I say gone through a spider's web. I'm not sure. They'd taken a picture of it, and there was a big spider's web between the 2 horns, and it wasn't disturbing or hurting the deer at all. But like it almost was like a coexisting, like the spiders were like obviously getting a lot of stuff, the things moving around. But I like that idea that you're just covered in like this horrific like nest of horns, and then it's just spider's web on top of that, so it looks like a big netting sort of thing. Again, terrifying image. So yeah, that's what I was taking from this for the unnerving aura.
I do think they're good. I just would love some more. Like some of the ones I got in my one is I've done like one where you can gain cephalopod type skin, and you do hypnotic pattern sort of thing. Ooh. And that's a really great one. Like, so you just like, you can do hypnotic pattern as every time you see people and they get stunned by that. There could be arachnid ones, there could be carapaces, which we've already kind of got, or like your amphibious, you know, like I think why not go all out in that, guys? But
I can't remember what the name of the creature is. So I'm just trying to Google it now. I think it's the muntjac deer, and they have as well as looking like a deer, they've got like extra uh glands or nasal like sensory glands, so it's like there, and so when they breathe they open there as well. And so
Mm.
yeah, you could be like, okay, yeah, you've got extra senses that, yeah, so you have
Yeah.
blind senses for that, but you have these horrific like holes, so when you breathe in they open. Oh, they are
Mm.
terrifying creatures, and they're tiny as well, almost like those little velociraptor kind of creatures. You're like, oh, where's mum? Blah, you know.
I
Ugh,
love that.
ugh.
So
Yeah,
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 great. See, I just think at home, make your own sort
yeah,
of thing.
100%.
Hungering Might is you gain bonus Constitution saving throws equal to your Wisdom modifier. In addition, once per turn, when you hit a creature with an attack roll whilst you are transformed using Wrath of Wild, you regain a number of hit points equal to 1d10 plus your Wisdom modifier, provided you are bloodied when you are hit.
Mm.
Now, when you hit, yeah. So okay, I think that's kind of, I think this whole idea of like when you've got under half your hit points, you then gain these benefits. I'm a little bit unsure as to exactly why that
I think
necessarily
they
matters.
want you to fight. They want you to do the combat of it, right? Because normally,
Mm,
if you're like, I'm under half, maybe we should run away. And it's like, well, we're giving you some things that you can
okay.
only do this, like, and again, I can imagine like you've been hurt as this creature of the
Mm,
wild, and you're like, I'm now angry, even and to the detriment of yourself. I'm going to go all out. So that's why I see it thematically.
mm,
But yeah, it just feels like, hey, this is gaming the system a little bit, and I'm just saying, again, is that something where I would absolutely forget this?
yeah.
I would absolutely forget that I could do this sort of thing.
Mm.
I'd have to have it like all up in front of my screen constantly. But by the
But
way,
it's like it's just like acting that I'm at half hit points is better for me to be acting at because I'll just work in that zone and then I'll be
mm,
gaining benefits. Whilst if until I get to that, so it's like I kind of get 1.5 hit points in a way, which is
yeah,
I guess it's fine. It just feels a little bit like I could really like we're fighting something that could do more than half my hit points. It'd be really useful if that thing kept going all the way back up to full so that I could keep fighting whatever I'm fighting. Is the only thing I would say. But other than that, yeah, it's cool, and you gain bonus Constitution saving throws is useful, I guess.
mm-hmm.
They come across. It feels like yeah, it makes a lot of sense. You're sort of one with the earth and nature that you can handle getting a bit of poisoning or drinking something weird and having some Constitution. Um,
Yeah, yeah.
Rotten Violence is quite fun.
What
Great
a
name.
great name. Yeah,
Yeah, best
great
name.
title for it. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, that's a book in itself, right? Rotten Violence.
Mm-hmm.
That should be what they call it. Your dedication to Eldritch Forest Beatings alters you further. When transformed, you gain the following additional benefits. So you get creature fails at saving throw against you or unnerving aura. It takes necrotic poison or psychic damage of your choice equal to your ranger level, which is quite good. Ignores resistance, which is cool.
I was going to say, because there's going to be so many creatures that have poisonous resistance as soon as you get further up. So yeah, it totally makes sense that you'd be able to ignore that resistance.
And I like straggling roots. When you hit a creature with an attack roll using a weapon, you can activate the sap or slow mastery property in addition to a different mastery property you're using with that weapon, which I think
Mm.
is quite cool. Yeah.
Again, thematic, and again, it is trying to tie you into doing those mastery properties of weapons, which
Mm.
I'll admit I've yet to look at it properly, but it totally makes sense.
Yeah.
Like, again, just to add those little bits of extra, again, trying to make you, the player, know what you've got. You know.
Yeah. No, I think that's a good one. And I think I think making those things for weapons, I think is good because otherwise they did get a bit stale. And I think it's something that gives weapons a little bit more to them. And then, as you said, forcing those things into them or using them as a part of this class thing is like, that's what classes should be doing. They should be making the most of all the modifiers, all the mechanics you have in the game should be being manipulated in some form of class or some form of ability. Because what else? Otherwise, it gets boring, right? That's the first time I've seen anything hit or use those things. And I imagine, I haven't looked at the new fighters, but I imagine they probably utilize them a bit as well. I imagine.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think it's everyone, but I think finance for sure. Yeah.
As in, I can imagine they would have mechanics that could deal with those, which would be like you can double your mastery or you can, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And then Ancient Endurance is something that I stated they should have forever, which is this persistent hunt. It makes so much sense. When I wrote my Ranger, which never got released, had this, which is that the fact that you have immunity exhaustion, which I think is great. Like they should, because you are a hunter, you are the Dritz. I always go back to that Dritz novel, which inspired me, which is where he just keeps going and going and going because he has a quarry or he has to run away. And that felt so like it. So I think that's pretty cool.
Definitely.
And the persistent hunt, which is when you drop to 0 hit points whilst transformed, you don't die, you can expend a level +4+ spell slot, no action, and your hit points then instead change to an amount equal to 5 times the level of spell slot expended, which could be think they could do up to 6, or could they do up to 7?
I don't know, but yeah, it's depending on obviously what you have left in terms of your stuff. Yeah, because ultimately rangers at this point are just using. Well, I mean, Hunter's Mark is now a part of the core class, so it's less of that. But yeah, so like the fact is like, yeah, I like the idea that you cannot die. Like there'll be a way to get back. It takes a lot of energy to do so. Just
5.
Again, like all these things, like when you're the protector of a forest supply, like it never really truly dies. But like, yeah, I just thought it was again very thematic and absolutely immunity to the exhaustion condition. Ooh, pretty good at level 15, I think.
Yeah.
Pushing yourself forward. Yeah, it really ties into that, as you said, that motivation to keep going and to protect. Yeah, love that. Thought that was really cool.
Said, all of these late level ones are healing when you're dead, aren't they?
Well, you dropped to his 0 hit points? I don't think so. You're back and you're undead now. A lot of it is that, to be fair. But I do think the Rager, the Horror Warden, is interesting, and I think hopefully
it's the best one. I think
it's one of the better ones for sure, and I think it'll be interesting to try it out. That's the thing. But yeah,
best Rager. I think the Cleric's the best.
Yeah, I was gonna say you have to clarify it slightly. I think it's one of the better ones they've done for Ranger for a long time.
I just want more of it, which I think is a good sign, because I'm like, this is cool. Just give me more builds of that Wrath of the Wild. That's what I'd love to see. I'd love to see, like, you either get Ancient Art and Unnerving Aura, or you get something that's completely different. Like, you get fly speed, but also something else. Or you get, like, a Dragon Breath. Or you get... as I said, just like weird shit. Just give them weird stuff.
Weird shit. You are the forest. You are the sea. Yeah,
exactly. Or like Dryad powers, or trees. Like you can hide in trees, or you can travel through trees like to 30 feet or something like that. Or you can go into the earth, or become Alex Mackett, or whatever. So yeah. Then you get Phantom, which is good. Returning one. It's always been a good one because it's a rogue, so it's obviously good, but it's especially good.
I mean, I admit, when we looked at rogues a long time ago now, this was one of the ones that was on my list of ones to play. I like the idea of this. So, yes, some rogues walk along the veil between life and death, shepherding opponents through the grave and slipping through the world as undetectable as a spirit. In these pursuits, a rogue might discover a mystical connection to death itself. Such an individual becomes immersed in negative energy, infusing their strikes with deathly energy and stealing knowledge from souls who have passed on. Really cool. I just thought it could be such a really interesting thematic story. You know, like I said to you before, like I'm not someone that comes up with a lot of backstory, but instantly I saw this, I was like, oh, well, instantly I know what the story is that you're going to get taken over by these spirits and you're going to lose yourself.
Exactly.
Yeah. Like again, it's the Jean Grey, I think, of it all. Like and then you go, I don't want any of this. And you become like the spirit,
the Phantom.
Yeah. You become the Phantom, not the Phoenix. Yeah, very good. Yeah. Exactly.
Well, you can listen to us wax lyrical on this a lot in the other one, so we maybe can run through it a bit quicker, even though it's a great one. But like Whales from the Grave, immediately after you deal sneak attack, you can target a second creature that you can see and roll half the number of sneak attack dice. And the second creature takes necrotic damage equal to that roll. It's great. You can use it a number of times, which only changed to a dexterity modifier instead of proficiency bonus, I believe it was before.
Yeah.
Whispers of the Dead. When you finish a short, long rest, you can choose one skill or tool finish you lack and gain it, which I think was always it's a funny one, but it's actually quite useful if you know what you're up to.
Again, it's that sort of thing where like you go, okay, there isn't weirdly all the doors are unlocked in this place, so I'll change it to, I don't know, a climbing kit or something. I don't know. Again, I think that's the thing. I think it was just skill or tool proficiency. I mean, I've talked about this before. It just has to be everything that you can get. So like herbalism kits, all that sort of thing. I think that'd be quite cool to have.
Personally, I think I said this last time we looked at it. It would be better to be like, you gain +1 in one of your stats for the day. Just choose the stat of your choice and you gain, or saving throws or something like that.
A little bit better at stuff. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, as much as because I think, but they want tools. If they make tools more important, then this would be more important, but I just don't think it's not. I don't think it comes across as much like, not picking great, but
it's tricky because, like I said to you, they have done some more stuff around tools, but like until I've played it and tried it in my own campaigns, again, it's that sort of thing where both you and I haven't played with the new rules yet, so we don't know how.
But this was the same in the last rules as well, and So and that's the thing. But in the old rule, but maybe the new rules they made it better, which is cool. But I think when it was in the old rules, it's also like it requires your GM to be on it with what tools are needed when all the time. And as there are a number of mechanics that do get lost a little bit in D&D, but that's one of them I think does get sort of forgotten about. Like, do you have artisanal tools to do a painting? Like, if you go just do a dexterity roll, can you do a painting? Do you know what I mean? Like, you can get some supplies from somewhere.
And if you get supplies, they reduce the difficulty down by 2. It doesn't give you proficiency. I am always a big fan of like if you've got something that lowers it down rather than like that you because obviously if you roll, you could roll really fucking poorly. So.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, no, that's fair.
And then, the big thing about this particular class is the tokens of the departed. So, the spirits of the dead are drawn to you, and the echoes of past lives magically manifest as strange curios with resonant power. I would say I would love a random table for this of like, what do they look like? Because I don't know, why wouldn't we have that, And you can, a number of soul trinkets you gain after you finish a long rest increases to like up to 4 when you get to level 17. And you can use them in the following ways. So when you deal sneak attack damage on your turn, expend one of them and use that Wells of the Grave immediately as a result from before. Life Essence, when you have at least one soul trinket, you have advantage on death saving throws or constitution saving throws. Love that. I think that's such a really cool, like you're just holding on, like you just go, you hold it. And you hold it on as at least one soul trinket. Spirit Query, you could take a magic action to expend one soul trinket and immediately cast the Augury spell. I always think Augury is quite an interesting, flavoursome one myself. I think it's just that's the one to talk with the DM, I think, off the top of my head. And the regaining soul trinkets, when a creature you can see within 30 feet of you dies, you can take a reaction to regain one. So again, from what I understand before, it was quite hard to gain them. So now you can gain them within combat. And you can be like again, the sneaky God.
You could always get them like the dead when they die. It's just that you get 2 now at the beginning of each day before you didn't have any at the beginning.
That was it. Yeah. So you already have them. That's nice. So you won't sort of as you had a bit more to it there. Only other real things to say about the end of the Phantom is that they've got the new Voice of Death. Now you can actually speak to ghosts. Apparently you couldn't do that before, which makes me laugh. Ghost Walk, you can now get once you as a bonus action, you assume a spectral form, gaining benefits from below for 10 minutes. So you can now fly. You got a hazy form, which means attacks have disadvantage on you, which is great. Incorporeal movement, you can move through occupied space as if they were difficult terrain. Nice, easy, straightforward in that sort of sense. And then finally,
I like it.
Yeah, and then finally, Death's Friend you have there is that you can use the Whales from the Grave feature to deal necrotic damage to both the first and second creature, so more than one creature. And then Draw of Death. So when you roll initiative, you regain 1 soul trinket for your tokens of departed if you have none remaining. Great. So if you've already used them off outside of combat, you're like, oh shit, now I don't have anything. You're always going to have them on you now for combat, which is great.
It's always difficult, isn't it? How many managing how many of the cool things you can have available, but as ever, rogues come out the bag with lots of cool stuff to do. And
loads of stuff there.
I love Ghost Walk. Reminds us of Ghost Walk.
Yeah, absolutely.
Campaign, which is very cool and is worth checking out if you haven't listened to that episode that we talked about Ghost Walk, the 3E setting. Shadow Sorcery is another returning one from Sorcerers. Not a lot of changes. I think the Blind Sight addition to Eyes of the Dark, which you get level 3, which gives you Dark Vision with a range of 20 and Blind Sight within a range of 10 feet. And in addition, if a spell you cast creates an area of darkness, you can see normally through that spell, which I think is cool. Blind Sight is awesome. It's a really useful thing to have for any...
Certainly at level 3 and early on as well. You can really play with that eeriness.
Only up to 10 feet, but great.
I think it's great, yeah.
Yeah. It means that you, as a GM, you still got the ability to have people sneaking around and over in the distance going around you, but if they think that they can pass by you, then you're like, wait a minute, sort of thing.
What was that? Cool. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Exactly.
The shadow spells haven't changed too much, and they're good ones. Feign Darkness, Inflict Wounds, Pass That Trace makes sense. That if you can use the shadows for yourself. Hunger of Hadar, awesome. Summon Undead. It's the only one that feels a little bit like, I get it, shadowy undead, but I feel like they could maybe there's other ones out there. Phantasmal Killer's cool. Create Invisibility is awesome. Obviously, Contagion and Creation are major spells, but you're a sorcerer, so you're a demigod. Spirits of Ill Omen, which was the Hound before, which is kind of fun. You get a Summon Undead, which you cast one without a spell slot, which is fun compared to the Hound, which had a sort of particular category to it and stuff like that.
Yeah, it's a direwolf statistics essentially. And again, it felt very Hound of the Baskervilles. That's what I think they're trying to go for. But yeah, it doesn't really add anything when you've got the the summon undead. I'd also say as well, because it says here you can modify it so it doesn't require concentration, which I really like, actually. It's like, yep, off it goes. Does the own little
Only
thing.
lasts 1 minute, but at least it just means if you're in a heavy battle where you're getting attacked all the time and you don't want to have that annoying thing where you cast something and it keeps getting done because of your concentration, that's really useful for 10 rounds of combat.
Yeah, and I'd say as well, like, again, you could always flavor it to be like a Hellhound-S type thing on Summon Undead as well. So, like, all these things. Yeah. I like the idea that they were trying to do with the Hound of Ill Omen, but yeah, it's just like, you need something that's a bit more reliable in that sense. And you've already got a spell that does Summon Undead as well.
Shadow Walk's awesome because this one, unlike a lot of the other things I find so annoying, is if you have the ability to do this, you should be able to just do this at all times. And the fact that you could just, in dim light or darkness, you can take a bonus action to teleport up to 120 feet to an unoccupied place you can see that is also in dim light or darkness. Perfect. That should just be Misty Step. Like, when people get given Misty Step as an ability, and then it's like, you can use this once per long rest, you're like, that's so shit. I want to be Gambit. I want to be... Is it... not Gambit. I want what's his name?
Shadowcrawler. Nightcrawler.
Nightcrawler. I want to be Nightcrawler. I want to pop in here, and here, and be using the thing. And I think it's one of the rogues that gets ability. It's like, come on, give the rogue the ability to just dash. Because it's...
I'm here.
Exactly. No, give it to sorcerers who are already OP. And then and then umbral form, which is kind of similar a bit to what we had with the incorporeal form, I guess.
Incorporeal, again, always last level 1, so level 18. As a bonus action, you adopt a shadowy form, gaining benefits below for 1 minute unless you have an incapacitated condition. Or you spend 6 sorcery points, which is quite good. Again, the whole shtick with the sorcerers is dealing with the sorcery points and the sort of management of that.
Because before you didn't have the free version, you had to use 6 sorcery points. So I think this is a big change.
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, incorporeal movement. So we've said that before. Shadow resilience. So you have resistance to all damage except for force and radiant damage. Pretty great. Right. And a strength of the grave. When you would drop to 0 hit points, you can make a charisma saving throw. DC is 5 plus the damage, plus half the damage taken. Sorry. If you succeed, your hit points instead change to a number equal to 3 times your sorcerer's level. So again, I don't know what 3 times 18 is. It's a little bit more than 50. 54. That's what we just 54. There you go. You got it. I think saving. I don't like. I think it should just be guaranteed. Like. He's like, no, death. I will overcome death. That's the only thing I'd say. I feel like, because I guess every time, because it's half the damage you take. If it's like literally like you took 66 damage, like you said before, and so that's what 33 plus 38. You're not going to get over 38 at charisma saving throw. I think it should be like 5, and then if you die again, 10, 15. 20, I think that's because again, this idea of your magic, your infused with the weave, so you're just constantly coming back. You can't kill, you can't destroy energy, you can't destroy magic. It's just harder and harder to come back each time. That's what I would say, personally speaking, rather than like all the damage taken.
Half the damage taken beyond, or the damage that you took beyond 0. Do you know what I mean? So if it's like you took 66, but you actually, and you had 50, do you know what I mean? Then it was like 16, so it was like 8. Then that would be kind of maybe all right. I don't know, but I totally agree. Just give them the fucking ability. Stop being an ass.
Like, do you want it? You better be good at your charisma.
Or you better be like killed by a little ad who did 1 little damage. You know what I mean? It seems so silly that what if you took 66 the time before, but then the thing that killed you took. Like, I don't know. It seems silly that you could have 66 damage and then drop to 1 hit point. Then someone comes and stabs you, but then does a 12 damage. But if you got hit by the 66 damage, it took you to 0. It would be harder for you to come back than when you took 12 when you're on 1, which means you're in negative 11. Do you see what I mean? Like, I've been overkilled means weirdly different. So I can understand that. But hey ho, there you go.
And then the final 2 on this is to do with Warlocks. I'll say quickly, the Undead Patron doesn't change too much in terms of stuff. Like, it's quite nice. But I will tell you, there has been so much discourse on the Hexblade Patron because people don't like it. Because, again, it's doing what they've done to the Ranger ID, i.e. putting the Hex spell at the forefront and building it around it there.
Yeah.
And
it's weird. I like it because it's kind of like a good Ranger, but it's not a good Hexblade Warlock patron.
Exactly. Yeah. Like, I think it was interesting because, again, in the video, Mackenzie was saying, like, oh, well, what if, the person that has the sword or gets, does this pact with the blade or whatever it is, they're not, you've characterize them as not the fighter. They're like the bookish academic or something like that. And I'm like, yeah, I can see
that's
that.
the point. That's the point. That's what, like, I would say go watch High Rollers, watch Kim's character, Nova. Yes, Nova.
Yes, yeah, and Chiang Gong, I want to say.
Yeah, Chiang Gong. Yeah, exactly. Great example of that. Super nerdy, like, main character who then gets this blade, and that's the point of it. You are not the warrior. The warrior is being transmuted to you through the blade. And if anything, that's the point of all warlocks. That's the great thing about warlocks, is that inherently they do not have any ability. They only gain their ability through their patronage. And unlike the dedication of a cleric, who in theory has no magical ability innate in them either, they gain it through piety and zealotry, or however you want to play it, which is an interesting thing you could play, or just dedication and belief, which is interesting. Whilst the warlock is like, it allows you those sorts of more like, well, I've made not in necessarily the Hexblade, in the other ones, of like the desire for power that comes from not wanting to give faith to something, but just like making a deal to gain benefits. I like the one with the Hexblade, though, is that somehow I always feel like, unlike the other patrons that are around, so like when you go to an Archfey, or when you go to any other like undead, the Great Old One or whatever, that you've made a deal with something. This sometimes always in my mind is like, I found a cool sword. Oh shit! Now I got powers, which is kind of fun, and which gave you a completely different way to play it. Which is like, I could be the bookish character who then gains these blades, or I can be. You could play it like, I just found this blade and now I have these powers, and there's a different dynamic and stories to tell. Whilst, so what I'm saying is, I totally agree that that's a kind of an okay thing to have. Whilst giving you these hexes, as you said, I don't know. I kind of like it as like, this would be a really cool take on the ranger spell, a ranger, where it's like, you don't have Hunter's Mark, you have Hunter's Hex, and I'm kind of down for that. And I think it's actually quite good. I actually think, ignorant of that discourse, I actually think it's quite a good thing. I like what you get. You get Wrathful Smite, which I've talked about earlier. You get Shield, Freedom of Movement, Staggering Smite. You've kind of gone down the slightly Paladin meets Ranger way, which I quite like. The Hex, then, you cast Hex without spending a spell slot, number of times equal to a Charisma modifier, which is going to be good anyway, and you get those back. When you cast Hex, spectral weapon resembling your patron orbits the cursed object. So cool. When you hit a target cursed by your Hex with an attack roll, you can cause one of these additional effects. Draining Slash. Target makes a con save, and then against your DC. On a fail, it can't make opportunity attacks, and its speed is half until the start of your next turn. Or it makes a Wisdom save. If it fails, the next time the target makes an attack roll against a creature other than you before starting next turn, it takes necrotic damage equal to your Charisma roll. Great. Or Styling Mark, the target has disadvantage on the next saving throw. I mean, these are great. At level 3, those are all pretty cool abilities.
Great stuff, yeah.
And Rangers ain't getting that from Hunter's Mark, which I think is, and it should be, like, I like the idea of a Hunter's Mark that feels like this weird balance between magic and your, like, I choose you sort of thing, that actually I curse you and you are now my quarry, feels so much cooler as an undead ranger. So I'm like, if I would say, like, if you like the idea of ranger, but you like this, like, you want to be like a dark ranger, this is a great way to go for it.
Yeah, no, I was going to say, because the original Hexblade's curse, you gain a proficiency bonus against the target when you're doing attack rolls. Any attack against the cursed target is a critical hit on a 19 or 20. So again, that's pretty cool.
That was good,
and then, yeah, I like that. And then if they die, you've gained hit points equal to your Warlock level plus the Charisma modifier. So again, you're like, they die? Okay, a little bit more like that.
Oh, cool.
And what they've done now, they sort of spread that out in the rest of this class. But I just thought that was such a cool one. And I always am a big fan of, like, oh, I crit on a 19. Oh, getting closer to be like...
It's really good. That does happen in this. In Masterful Hex at 14, you get a cursed critical, but that's at like level 14.
Yeah.
Because I think, that means you've got a 1 in 10 chance to crit, which is a big deal. It's a 100% increase in the amount of times you're going to crit, which is incredible. I like the Lifestealer. Hungering Hex, when you target cursed by your Hex drops to 0 hit points, you get those 1d8 plus your Charisma modifier. And in Inevitable Blade, once per turn, if you make an attack roll against target cursed by a Hex and miss, you can still deal necrotic damage, which I think is great. I think the armor's good as well. You can reduce the amount by 2d8 plus your critical modifier, which is awesome as a reaction. and you get that a number of times with Christmas Bonfire again. And we talked about Masterful Hex. You get that double critting. You get the Infectious Hex, which is you can target one additional creature and it takes additional 1d6 necrotic. And taking damage can't break your concentration on Hex at level 14.
That's
great.
Good. Yeah.
Really good. I actually think it's a good class. I totally agree that the old one was good as well.
Yeah, I think
mean?
there's definitely a nostalgia there. Like again, in the D&D campaign that I played, the one at level 20, every combat, our paladin, who was also a warlock, was like, Hexblade's cursed, instantly getting it all done. Totally makes sense. So yeah, I'm really interested to play this one, actually, thinking about it, because again, I would love to see it in combat. But yeah, I think because people were so about the Ranger not being very good, and then they go, but they've taken the best class and made it the worst class. And I agree. I don't think that's true. I think we just need to play it through and properly play test this and see if it is different. Because obviously, Hexblade Curse was so good. It's like, why would you mess with perfection? And it's like,
no, I totally agree. And I do agree with that. I think the old one was good. I just don't think this is bad. That's the only thing. I actually think of all the ones, I would give it a hard time, but I actually think this is not. But it's probably because it's like the old one was really good. This is just good. And maybe. And I'm just looking at it more like, well, if you just implemented this on the Ranger, you'd actually have a pretty decent Ranger.
For sure.
Like if you just allowed Hunter Mark to do all these things, it'd be kind of good. And then Undead Patron, you said, hasn't really changed a lot, really, has it?
No, it's just got stuff there. Again, expanded the spell list a little bit. Grave Touch now allows you for spells and attacks to ignore resistances to necrotic damage. Great. Big fan of that. Necrotic Husk no longer requires a reaction to use its secondary feature, and it restores you to a number of hit points equal to 10 times your charisma modifier. Great. And then Superior Dread is a new feature, and this informs your form of dread. So again, it also allows you to fly.
I mean, for goodness sake, it's so annoyed me you couldn't do that before. So that was the one I was like, thank goodness, because people get annoyed that you can fly when you're an Aarakocra at level 0. So why can't someone at level 14 who's got this ability that grows these awful necrotic wings and stuff like that, let them fly, do it,
100%.
Love it, great. And the Vitality Siphon I like from that as well, which is the regain hit points. When you deal necrotic damage, you gain hit points equal to a charisma modifier, minimum of 1 hit point. I think it's not massive, but it's cool.
Hey, it all helps. It's like, again, it's like, I hurt you, I heal myself. And just to say, the Necrotic Husk, so this is where the if you drop to 0 hit points thing and don't die outright, you can cause your body to erupt with deathly energy. Each creature of your choice within a 30-foot emanation or originating from you makes a Constitution saving throw against your spell save DC, taking necrotic damage equal to 2d10 plus your Warlock level on a failure or half as much on a success. And then it's changed to that 10 times your charisma. So I like the idea you're just like, it's just, great. As a one-off, again, you are the bomb this time rather than your little bag of limbs that I was walking around. You are the bomb in that sense.
No, it's
really cool.
It's
really
very cool.
And that's level 10. Everyone else is like 0 hit points or whatever. Is like level 17, 15.
17, yeah, exactly. No,
very cool.
It's really good. It's really good. And it's that power of being evil.
It turns out being evil, you get the best songs, get the best outfits, and also some of the best classes as well, clearly. Although, I will say this, Warlocks aren't necessarily evil.
No, I know.
They kind of are.
Yeah. Well, that's it. That's all of those.
That's all of those, yeah. And I think there's a mixed bag, as we've sort of discussed. As we said at the beginning of the episode, I genuinely feel like it is going to be a Curse of Strahd revisited, but I mean, it's interesting that they've gone, right, here are these like 8 classes for you for this thing. That's more than quite a few. Sometimes when we get a setting, we get maybe 1 or 2 like to do with the setting. Here we've got sort of 8 like not randoms, but they're themed vibes. So I'm wondering, do we get more later on? I mean, I'm always up for more, but maybe the other like a fighter or something like that. We'll see. But I'll be curious to see what happens, and no doubt we'll find out, I think, closer to Gen Con. Obviously, once Eberron and the dungeon.
When is Gen Con? It's soon, isn't it?
It's the end of July. So we've got a little bit of time, but it'll be. Yeah, I'll be curious, and there will definitely be a big push campaign, I think. Well, you'd hope so. At the rate of them putting out books, we won't know. But what about your final thoughts, if any?
I think generally they were good. I think, as you said, I'm interested to see what it actually turns out to be, whatever this other book comes out. Thinking about it more, I'm kind of still thinking it's got to be some form of like primer to something. I don't think it's going to be an adventure now. I think I think it would be. I think it takes up a lot of space, all these subclasses, and it feels more like I'm getting 8 subclasses all about horror. It must be like a horror fest anthology of some description, or so I'm moving away from. I think Curse Strahd makes a lot of sense for them to remake it because they just like to remake things. But also, I could easily see this being like a primer for horror or of some description.
So maybe a remake of Van Richten's Guide to Ravenloft, perhaps. I mean, I mean. I don't know why.
Realm. Or the Shadow Realm.
Oh, the Shadow Realm. Yeah.
It's not Van Richten's Guide to Ravenloft. It's like Van Richten's Guide to the Undead or something. Do you know what I mean? Like it's like a slightly variation of like, or what's it? I don't remember what it's called. I know what it is in the Warhammer one. It's called Gemenestadt or something like that, which is like the night of All Hallows. So it's like the All Hallows Eve or something like that. Or Volo's Guide to All Hallows or something like that. Or or something of those,
I think it'll be interesting. I'm holding judgment a little bit because because I really liked Van Richten's Guide to Ravenloft. Like again, because it had lots of ideas. If it's expanded on that, great. But we'll see. Again, I'll be interested to see if they re-release any UA from this. If they're going to include any other classes like Barbarian, obviously Fighter didn't get much of a look in either. But it makes I agree with you. It makes more sense that it's a primer of some sort because no way would an adventure have this many subclasses. Unless it's we're just going to go all out, you know what I mean? So it'll be interesting.
Well, a Screen Rant believes that it's going to be a Return to Ravenloft, and if they do a Ravenloft, then don't call it Return to Ravenloft. That's a really shitty name to not call. They should call it that. Like that's the title. It's such a good title, Return to Ravenloft, and it's like you survived Strahd once, but can you survive Mecha Strahd?
Blah 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 blah.
He combines with the Vineyard people, the Weird Paladins, and with what's the name?
And
Tatiana.
Mordekainen's there too.
And Mordekainen's there too. And they all become one to become Mecha Strahd. Like,
oh my god, I would love to watch that. Actually, like we're doing it with the power of friendship. Come on, Power Rangers! Yeah, absolutely. Hamilton, thank you so much once again coming and dealing with me going like, it's horror. We should look at it. Thank you so much for that. Where can we find you? What work have you got going out just now? What's happening with you, my friend?
What's happening with me? You can find me as Theatre Macabre all over the internet. I'm working very much on the old Wraithborn. If you join that now, there are links in the backer-only things to join the Discord and the secret part of the Discord where you can playtest now not only all the Ironclad corrupted mechanics, but you can also play as some really fun things like Dampirs and Bloodseekers, which are my 2 like vampiric classes. So if you're into your horror things and you want to play around with blood curses and vampiric transfigurations and stuff like that, then it's the fun place to be. It's all PlayStation Mirrors. I'm still working on it, but you can have a look at that. And then, other than that, YouTubing. I've got back to doing a little bit of YouTubing. Obviously, I'm off on holiday tomorrow as we talk about this, so you might not see much going on the channel in the next couple of weeks. But I don't know when this goes out. I might be back by then. But I had a onesie, as it's known in the YouTube community, which means I got a 1 out of 10 on my ranking of views on my latest video. So it's done.
Wait, what does that? Sorry, what does that mean? Sorry,
when you do YouTube, it gives you this background information. It says like on your video, it shows you like ranking like out of the last 10 videos where it stacks on your list. So how good you are compared to how you were, and then it shows you your view number, your impressions, click-through rate, and your average view direction. And then it gives you like a little like tick if you're doing what you usually do. And it does a grey down if you're doing badly. And if you're doing better than usual, there's a little green uptick. And you're like, and what you want is the uptick, which is like, and it's so like gamifying you and telling you your shit. And there's a show I watch called, which is called Jugs, not because of any bad reason. They kind of, they are a Warhammer people, and they thought, what's the funniest way to name it? And there's one of the girl on the show is called, late woman on the show, sorry, it's called Suggs. And so I think they thought it was funny that they called it Jugs because they thought, well, it'd be funny if people type in Jugs and end up at a Warhammer thing, and it's just a bunch of it's 2 dudes and a guy talking about Warhammer and not what people might be. I think it's a very crap joke, but also on there, my point is they use this term called a onesie, which is when you hit like you get a 1 out of 10 out of your last 10, and it's like a good thing. It's like I got a onesie on my video because they talk about the videos they do on YouTube. And so
okay,
that's a very long-winded.
No,
It's a
no, that makes more
long-winded.
sense. It makes
Yeah.
more sense because I was like,
So,
a 1 out of 10. I was like, that's normally bad. So
no,
just
it's
double
like the
check.
number one that you've done. So like it's
Right,
like, and
right,
so it's
yeah.
like they don't happen very
Ah.
often, but when they do, you feel
Oh,
YouTube makes you feel
congratulations.
better. It gives you a little like it gives you a little fanfare on your YouTube
That's
studio
so
and stuff.
funny. Oh,
So
bless.
yeah, I did a kit bash of some Tau that made them chaos corrupted, and it's one of those weird things as well when you watch these things. I don't know if people out there do YouTube, but you can watch the algorithm at work, and it is quite fascinating to see how it targets people. Because what it did, right, is it didn't do too well at the beginning. It did really well at the beginning when it did like a small amount of people, which clearly goes to people I know, and so it got picked up with like 6% of people clicked on it. It's kind of which is quite all right.
That's not
for
bad.
me,
Yeah.
which is good for me. And then it literally like went, all right, I'm going to show this to 10,000 people. And it showed it to 10,000 people and it went way down. So obviously it's like, well, that wasn't the right 10,000 people. So then it kind of went like up and down, up and down, up and down. And it kept going like click-through rate kept going like down, down, up, oh, up. And then it went, and it kind of got better and better and better. And as it slowly tried like small amounts of people. And then it went, I'm going to send it to 30,000 people now. And every single person clicked on it. And it was like, so what it did is it went, I sent it to the wrong people. And then it does little tests, and then it goes, oh, this one's working. It hones in, and then it just goes stonks when it realizes it just shoves it at the right people. And you're kind of like, how? It's kind of scary. Do you know what I mean?
I can imagine.
It figures it out. It like figures out, but then it obviously gets it right. And then when it gets it right, it gets it really right. So it was very interesting to watch. I was like, oh, this isn't doing very well, this video. And then so I was like, oh no.
And then you were like, wait,
the machine is learning. You know,
oh my God, it's becoming
out of
sentient.
control.
Yeah,
exactly. It was very much like that. So,
well done, mate. That's awesome.
I mean, like it's hit and miss and no, but yeah, it did all right. So that was kind of that was a good thing. So yeah, a couple of videos, and I'm going to become more regular again now on those. Now I've kind of got some ideas and feel like I've got a process. Really, it's more the thing. It was more like finding an easy way to actually get around to recording them is the hardest bit, because when I've been struggling since I moved rooms, so it's been up and down. So now I've got it sort of sorted out a bit.
Nice.
But that's enough about when and what. What about where?
When, what, where? Absolutely. Yes, Where is one of my rolling, which is a twice monthly tabletop RPG one-shot podcast where we do lots of different RPGs, systems, and interviews with game designers. Yes, it's still happening. We've got bits and pieces happening, but it's all good stuff. Some other interview stuff. We're going to do some actual plays in the coming weeks as well. And yeah, you'll hear all about it. But if you want to find out more, go check out What Am I Rolling wherever you listen to podcasts. We've got the website and all that sort of thing there. So yeah, it's doing all right. And I'm 1/3 of the RP Geeks. We are again. Keep on going, whatever we're doing. We've done our Call of Cthulhu one shot now, which obviously we've not done at the time of recording, but I bet I was brilliant.
I imagine it was amazing.
I just got to stick yourself.
Oh, it was so good. Do you remember that bit with the thing and the? Oh my gosh!
Oh God, amazing! Oh, you just said this really cool one-liner. Amazing. Yes, exactly.
And so then, witty.
I am so witty, smart, and clever. But also, I will be in the middle of Urchins, which is a kids on bikes hack that the wonderful Charmaine Woodell is running for us. And yes, we're going to do lots of basically imagine Oliver, but what if Oliver had superpowers? That's the vibe we're going for. Hopefully it'll be fun. I'm looking forward to it.
I can have some more.
Yeah, absolutely.
Fireball.
I will say because it will be out now. Obviously,
I'll dodge this.
I am totally going to use that in the first episode now. That's my cool one-liner. So my character is like basically I described her as Mara Wilson from Matilda, but she can talk to pigeons, and everyone else thinks she's just talking, but the pigeons can listen. So that's my vibe. That's what I'm going for.
So that's the most Fiona-y thing that Fiona's ever Fiona'd.
Yeah, exactly. So I talk to birds.
Yeah, exactly. Weird, creepy person who does something weird and creepy that is actually slightly not that creepy because it actually works. Sort of thing.
Absolutely. My whole goal for it is that I want at least one time for a bird to poo on someone because I told them so. That's literally my whole vibe. So I'm good. I can't
fully dodge this. That's when you can use that.
That's what I'm going to say. But my plan is to. I can't do that the first episode because that's too obvious. I'm going to wait to the right time and I'm like, okay, it's time. It's poo time, and then I'll just scream at the birds who like go shit on them like a big squadron of them or something like that. That's
make you look like a Trafalgar Square monument.
Yeah, take that, Nelson. Yeah, exactly.
Take that, Nelson.
Oh man, amazing. Thank you so much for listening to this episode of the DM's Book Club. We'll be back next week with another exciting topic to talk about, but until then, we will
see
you on the flip side.
Bye, everyone.
Bye. Bye.
See you soon. Bye.
Bye.